Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.
Welcome to Truth Wanted. I'm Puck. Truth Wanted is the call-in show where we want you to give us a call and let us know what you believe and why. And just as every Friday night, we have a special guest with us today. I could go on and on about the introduction here. There's so much that you do, and you're such a big name in the community. But let's just give a big welcome to Paulogia. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Thanks so much. I usually people see me as that cartoon guy you just saw, so I'm sorry if this disappoints anyone, but we're not VTubing here tonight. We're doing the real face thing.
I love that you do that though. Your responsibility is, and for those of you, like if you've been living under a rock in the atheist community, for those of you who don't know, Paulogia is most known for response videos on his channel, which we'll link to later on, in which he has absolutely no problem taking on the claims and beliefs of Christian YouTubers and of goodness, high academics, and letting him know what he thinks about it. So, Paul, I got to ask you, what made you choose the response video as your weapon of choice?
The primary reason, I think it was because I was mostly inspired as I was coming out of Christianity by response channels like Logic and like Aaron Ra and other channels similar to that. Even to some extent like Thunderfoot and some of those, that seemed to be the format that was, when I was in 2016 or so considering starting a channel. It didn't start till 2017. But the other thing I really liked about it was Christianity. And for those who don't know, I'm a former Christian. And so I even went to Bible school and that kind of thing. So my expertise is in the Christian area, but I know from that you can never speak for all Christians, right? I can never say, well, I'm going to respond to this thing that all Christians believe, because there's literally no such thing, right? So one thing that I like about the response format was it prevented that argument that I often saw that you're just talking to a straw man. No one thinks the thing, like if I said that people are sent to hell because they don't accept the gift of free life, right? People say, well, you're straw manning. You didn't express that exactly the way I believe it, so I don't have to listen to what your response is. But when I do a response video, I'm actually getting the words of at least one Christian. So I'm responding to at least one Christian who believes the words there. And so that has saved me a lot from people dismissing me because I'm trying to express ideas that they don't hold. And we do, whether on purpose or not, it's always very hard to properly express another person's ideas. That's one of the things. So that, of course, active listening, you can kind of get to that. But when you don't have the person in front of you, it's best to just use their words. So that's partially why. Also, I have a background in editing. And so for me, it's a lot more comfortable to be able to, craft the responses and possibly even sometimes I like to improve their video, right? I like to, if they're kind of all over the place in their organization, sometimes I even like to reorganize what they did so that it can go into silos of more coherence, or at least.
Like, here, let me touch up that sermon for you, right?
Oh man, the number of times I've fixed the sound off of someone else's video as well. But yeah.
Now you're being a little humble here when you say something like background in editing, because one of the things that you did most recently was what's the best way to describe it? A rendition of Star Wars Episode 4 done entirely by clips that are not from Star Wars.
Right. So I think people who've been watching it have come up with the phrase recreation, and that's probably the best way to say it. A lot of people will be familiar with Ricky Gervais And I believe he was the originator. And if he's not, forgive me if he's not the first to say it, but he said something along the lines of, if every science book was eliminated today, in a few thousand years, we would have all the science books back, right? We would relearn everything. But if you eliminate every religious holy book in the world, none of those would get recreated. And I think that was what J. Warner Wallace, for those of you who don't know, J. Warner Wallace is a Christian apologist, best known for as the cold case detective. He has a new book coming out that it basically is trying to say that you could if all the Bibles in the world were eliminated, you could recreate them from people who have read the Bible and been inspired by it. And so therefore something. Therefore God exists. I don't know. Therefore what? But I got annoyed with his book tour. And so I said, well, you know what? You could also recreate Star Wars without Star Wars. And it turns out, that was a little idea I had. Turns out that's not as easy as it looks. So I spent a good couple weeks just researching clips and downloading clips and finding every single line to try and put the whole movie together. But that's what I did because I'm stubborn and I wanted to prove a point. I still don't know exactly what the point is. So you can recreate the Bible from Bible fan material, like, paintings. You can recreate Star Wars from fan materials. What does that prove about anything? I don't know.
I think it's more the idea that since there's stuff in the Bible that's reliable history, then for the stuff that we don't have other sources for. And you're famous for this too, because you've made a lot of people angry with "For the Bible tells me so."
Right. That is.
So since you can rely on the Bible for other stuff that's verified, you can rely on it also for the stuff that you only find in there. I don't know. I don't personally believe that. I think every claim needs to be investigated individually. But it's just your masterwork of these is incredible. And it's for a typical half-hour video. Just out of curiosity, how much is going to go into it? How much actual behind-the-scenes work?
On average, I've spent an hour for every minute that my video is.
Wow. Okay.
If you count the research and the the scripting and the recording and then the later animation and adding blinking and adjusting all the sound and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So like a 12-minute video, I will spend 12 hours on. If it's a 40-minute video like the one that I recently posted, it's probably closer to a full week's of full-time work. And it's not my full-time job, so that's weird.
No, I've attempted to make response videos, and I've attempted to make videos of the video games that I play to make it palatable in YouTube form. And there's so much more that goes into it. That sounds about right. An hour for every minute. So what is it? About this time last year when we were all COVIDed, my wife's handbell choir at church decided we still want to play music, but we have to, there's no way we can get everybody together at the same place. Everybody had to record their individual bit one by one.
Oh yeah.
Then we got the video files, and then that's not it, because now we still have to balance the audio and we have to sync everything. And everybody has slightly different rhythms. Some people play a little late on the beat, some people play a little early. So we have to make these little tiny micro edits to line everything up. So for a 2-minute video, I think for the first one we did took about 6 hours worth of work, and that's not counting when they were recording.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, no, editing is a tedious task, but it's one I find joy in. It's actually my favorite part of the process, which is really weird.
And it's not just that too, because you have created an avatar for yourself, which, as you said, is probably, people, there are a lot of people who will know you for that a lot more than would be able to recognize you by your face.
Right.
The ones who watched this video. Did you create this avatar just for your channel, or has this been something you just do?
I have been doing silly scribbles on paper since I was a tiny little kid, including, I was discussing this with my mother during church time. We would always sit in the same place in the church, in our Mennonite church, where we sat, and that was sort of almost assigned seating, right? So I had pencils, and I eventually had made an animated flip book in the corner of the hymnal in front of me, because every week I was in the same spot, right? So I could do a couple drawings each week until I eventually had a whole flip book. And when my mother discovered that, I made me take the hymnal home with an eraser and erase every single page.
No.
That's her biggest regret in life, I think, is that she made me do that because I was, I had made it this little artistic thing. All that said, the question was, the avatar was, I'm okay saying now, I didn't talk about it back then, but I was still, I still had cancer at the time, and I was still quite sick looking. And I knew that the things I wanted to say were going to be, it was going to be distracting to have that stuff coming from an unhealthy face. YouTube is a very highly visual medium, and it sucks. It shouldn't matter what the person looks like who's saying a thing, but I know in reality that it did. And I think I've gotten over that. Like, I'm less concerned with that now. I just deal with this is the best I can be and whatever. But at the time, I kind of felt like it was going to be a way to present my message in a way that was less distracting. So that's how it started. I had no idea I was ever going to have guests. That was a accident. And then it became a whole thing. I don't know if anyone's watched my channel, but every time I have a guest on now, I have to like draw them. And I'm not a very good drawer. Like, honestly, I'm not. And so I have to make it look like the person as best I can without insulting the person, and then rig their faces for animation. So I'm good at making things hard on myself, is maybe the best way to say it. But that's sort of the story of the cartoon. And I'm so well known for it now that I can't really go away from it. I know there's people that just want to be on my channel just so they can be a cartoon.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage for atheist YouTubers. You're not really an atheist YouTuber until you have been commemorated as an avatar on Paulogia's channel. You do the mouth animations by hand, or is there?
It's an algorithm that I developed in After Effects that's essentially puppetry.
Okay.
So I don't have to. I don't hand do every frame, but I have to, basically every time I do a new character, if anyone's done an animation, I basically have to create a new rig, right? Of what the range of sounds might be, and so it's I don't know. It's more work than
no,
it
I've just
be.
been I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand enough is you have you and me up here on the air, and we're doing our thing, but this is the tip of the iceberg as far as what's necessary for the creation, right? Never mind the scheduling and the ideas. There's people behind the scenes, and we'll say hi to crew later. You guys are the heart of the show, and so what they see, the final product, represents only such a tiny chunk of all the work that has to go into it.
But here's the thing, though. But here's the thing. So just if you want to start a YouTube channel, anyone listening to this, that is not the bar, though. Like, the bar is not so you have how to do editing, or how to do any of that stuff. The bar is, I have a thought in my head and I have a phone, right? And I think TikTok has kind of shown that. I mean, we're getting away from the production value stuff, while important, is not the most important. And I really I'd hate to think that we are not getting voices because they feel like there's some kind of technical bar that they need to meet. Like, that's gone.
Yeah. No, I can think of it. I think you can too. Like, the first name that comes to mind is Exmo Lex, who built her entire platform on an iPhone from the back of her van.
Yeah,
like that's like the first 2 years of her channel, and so you don't need that much. You need something to say and a way to say it, and then the courage to push send.
Exactly. So, and you just get better in your storytelling. The only way to get better at telling stories to a camera is to tell stories to a camera. There's no shortcut that isn't that.
So. Oh, that's so hard for me even now. Like, if a lot of people don't know what this screen looks like for me, but if I were to want to look you in the eye and talk to you, this is what it looks like.
Right.
But I can't do that because I have to look here. And it feels still insensitive to you because it's like I'm not making eye contact.
Right.
But these are the little things, and I'm still learning after doing this for a year. The things that you're still learning how to do. If anybody is looking at us and looking at, and like we're polished professionals at this, absolutely not. I've done like only.
Well, also you need better taste because we are clearly not.
No. Okay.
Anyway, but I also need to mention Conor McGregor's shirt.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so people know when I do these shows, I've always worn just a plain single color shirt because I just don't like to make too much of a statement. But you know what? The time for that is over. Yeah, Paul, I almost dressed up as you for
Mm.
tonight's show, just plain black. And you are known for your plain black. Like, what's your avatar? Plain black shirt, right?
Yeah.
And I can't think of very many appearances you've had where you had
You go in my closet, there aren't any other colors. So
No, but I was on Secular Sexuality, plug, with Erica, Gutstick Gibbon. I'm sure you know who
Mhm.
that is.
Just
And
go to my channel.
I wanted to wear the nerdiest possible shirt that I had. So I got a shirt from the Taylor Swift music video, the one with the
Mhm.
periodic table of elements on it. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I can wear something that is specific to every guest.
That
Even
is a
though
big
you're not
commitment.
there anymore, because you've actually, this is how well I know your content. You've actually had some frames of Connor McDavid on one of your
Oh
videos.
yeah, for
So
sure. I've been an Oiler fan forever. Well, not forever, since 1979 when they started in the league, and that also tells you that I'm older than that. But no, I mean, I live and die with the Oilers, and mostly, for the last 30 years, that's been dying. But no, Connor's my guy, and I'm very excited that we're going to the Olympics. NHL players are going to the Olympics, so
yes, they are.
Connor can actually win something, which is great. I'm sorry,
Oh,
US, but the Canada team is going to get you.
the Canada teams need more representation. I was so happy to see
I mean,
Montreal.
Austin
in there,
Matthews
but
is playing for the American team, so that's still good.
yeah, I don't understand how we can go on about how the Oilers had 4 number 1 draft picks in 6 years and still haven't turned it into a playoff
Yeah,
series win.
that's just a sad tale, and I don't have enough to drink.
Yeah, but that's sports ball, and
Mhm.
most of the atheist audience doesn't. No, but one of the clips that impressed me most, and it was a clip that was probably only 30 seconds, but I have to imagine this took years. Is you had a clip where 9 someones were all describing the same example of how if somebody has a dream, they can't
Oh yes,
describe it to someone else. And
right.
to have watched that many apologist videos, to know where to find every single one of these clips, that took hours. That took dedication. So for a clip that lasted maybe 30 seconds, that that I give you a tremendous amount of respect for having put that clip together.
Well, usually I'm only that stubborn. Not always, but usually when I'm that stubborn, it's to make a point. And it literally was because they were all pretending to be off the cuff, coming up with this, oh, let me think off the top of my head of this example of how, how shared dreams don't work. And literally they all said, well, what if I'm sitting in bed with my wife and I dream that I've gone to Hawaii? I can't wake up and say, honey, come and join me in the dream. And it was like, yeah, as you said, it was like 6 or 7 different apologists telling the exact same story, almost at the same speed. I had to have a few drop in here for length of story, but I think as you and I've discussed before, apologists don't have a lot new to say, so they should at least have their own examples. I don't know who the originator was, but they've all copied from each other.
No, and one of the first videos that I watched of you, and this is how I became completely enamored by your the way you present is when you compared Eric Hoven's presentations with his father's presentations with very
Yes.
very little difference in between, and you would show them either like simultaneously or one immediately after the other to show there's not a lot of difference between how this content went on.
Yeah, no, Eric likes to he's a if those who don't know, Kent Hovind is a young earth creationist, and his son Eric Hovind also has a young earth creation ministry. And Eric is more cognizant of his reputation in the world, shall we say, and his production value. But despite that slickness, he's really just using his dad's slides. and when it like, so I really wish he would spend less time on the aged hardwood behind him, and more time on, well, can we have a new idea? Would be great. So
Well, see, this is another reason why why I love the idea of response videos, because there are some people who are very big fans of these people. You've come up with a few names. We can think of others like Frank Turek or
Mhm.
Greg Kokel, who will search for their material and then they'll see you, right?
Right.
And they'll see your response to it, because these are not nobody. These are people with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views, and if you combine them all, probably millions of followers. And for you to respond to that, they're seeing a direct response to something that their figurehead is saying.
Right. For those who don't know, and there's no reason you should, but when I left Christianity, I left most of my family behind. Like my family, we have great relationships, and that's healed over years. It wasn't easy at first. But most of the people that I love most in the world are still Christians and are still heavily influenced by the people I respond to. And that is, for me, the measure of who I wanted to respond to was who is influencing the lives of the people whom I love. And so there's a lot of great Christian YouTube channels. A lot might be a stretch. There's a bunch of popular Christian YouTube channels, but the people who are influencing those that I love are the ones like William Lane Craig and Ken Ham, and it's no coincidence that the popular ones have the most influence. And so, a lot of people will say, well, why don't you talk about Thomas Aquinas? Because he has the best ideas, right? Well, it's like, well, I'm not here I want to be able to make sure that what I believe stands up to the best possible scrutiny. But when it comes to my channel, I want to talk about the things that are influencing people and not have some weird philosophical discussion that isn't a part of anyone's day-to-day life. So that kind of drove me to then, okay, well, I have to actually be good enough in my arguments to address the most popular people, like the Frank Turek's and the William Lane Craigs and Jim Warner Wallace's and Lee Strobel's, like other people who are selling millions of copies of books. They're not dumb, right? They have wrong ideas, but they're smart people. So that's a little bit daunting. And so people who follow my channel may know that I kind of started more with the young earth creationist stuff because I think that's more straightforward as to why they're wrong. But eventually I just had to get my theology out. And I've been fortunate to have a lot of them respond back. So,
well, you know what? You do mention that you have no problem going toe to toe with the big popular names out there, people who are PhDs and experts in their field. You have no problem doing that. That's a fascinating thing, and I want to talk about that more. But I am told that we have a promo here for Black non-believers. So we'll play that first, and then we'll get right back into the interview as soon as we're done.
Hi, I'm Mandisa Thomas, inviting you to the 2021 Women of Color Beyond Belief Conference. This monumental event, which features all women of color speakers, activists, and authors, will take place from September 24th through the 26th in Chicago, Illinois. Speakers include yours truly, Sikivu Hutchinson, and the nonprofit's own Cynthia McDonald. In-person registration and online streaming options are available. Please visit WOCBeyondBelief.com for ticket information, student discounts, and sponsorship opportunities. Women of Color Beyond Belief is proudly presented by Black Nonbelievers, the Black Skeptics Group, and the Women's Leadership Project.
I am only about 5 hours away from that. I don't know why I don't just take a road trip and go.
No, right? Like I was sitting here thinking, like I check neither box, but man, I'd love to. I hope that stuff's available to stream later because that looks amazing.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's the people who don't check any of those boxes that probably, they're the ones who really need to.
I probably need to hear some of the stuff.
I have plenty to learn, and they mentioned Cynthia McDonald. I love it whenever Cynthia's on the nonprofits. She's a fantastic speaker, very, very well researched in her beliefs, and she's just such a fantastic person to work with. I've done a couple of episodes with her,
and I'm hoping she will be a cartoon by the end of the year. So we'll see how that
goes. So let's talk. We'll talk about the cartoons because I have something very special for you. But first, let's talk about how you have no problem going up to names like Dr. Craig or Dr. Loke, and even though and your research, but I'm guessing that there's no formal education, right? Like you don't have degree in theology?
No.
or
My degree is in. I have a degree in commerce and a degree in computer science.
Right.
So neither of those things relate.
Right.
I did go to Bible school for a year,
Okay.
but it was one of those things. God was calling me to be a youth pastor, and I didn't need the theology degree, and that was So anyway, no, I don't. I have no credentials. In fact, weirdly, up until like 4 or 5 years ago, I thought the Earth was 6,000 years old. So what do I know?
So how do you go from that to being like, oh, okay, you're a professor of theology and history. I'm going to go and publicly not just disagree with what you say, but also put forth my own idea for you to evaluate, which I don't think anybody has meaningfully evaluated that idea, to be fair, that I've ever
Not
seen.
yet. No.
No. But how do you get that kind of courage to just stand up to these people?
So I hate to say it's because, for the angry atheist phase, but it was the angry atheist phase, right? Where not everyone experiences this, but I very much felt betrayed and lied to. I didn't feel angry at anyone personally, like even my Bible school professors or any of my family or my pastors, that they were lying to me out of malice, but they were lying to me. And when you get that kind of anger, then I was so wrong about this thing that I spent so many decades on. I don't want to be wrong about anything again. Like nothing. I don't want to be wrong about no detail in my life. So one thing I did know was source methodology. And I learned that largely from watching earlier YouTubers. Like, it's like, okay, if they put up a slide and this is the source, and this is how we should deal with Wikipedia or anything, right? Okay, you go there, you look at the claim, you actually go find that footnote, and then you go see if it says, does it say what they say it said? What's the context? And then you go find what that person learned. And so source methodology let me be confident that I was exposing where they were wrong, even if it wasn't my idea. I could at least go read what they read and just start by presenting, okay, these don't line up. And a lot of the argumentation is just like, okay, Christians and atheists, everyone, we tend to be lazy in our research. We tend to carry forth the ideas that we hear that we think sound good. And so it was a very gradual process, the confidence level, in terms of being able to go toe to toe. And I think it was starting with young Earth creationists. I did go toe to toe with Kent Hovind and with Ken Ham. That is, I'll admit, slightly easier than some of these other more scholarly gentlemen, even though their titles are the same. So,
well,
I don't know if that answers the question. But.
No, it does. And we appreciate you fighting the good fight, and it gives us a little bit of courage, because when you speak up to these big names, you have to imagine that there are people that watch your content, that watch this show and other shows that we never hear from. Right. That we would never know they exist, but they are out there, and they are listening to what we say, and then they're going to church and they're listening to what the pastor says, and somewhere in there, seeing us have the courage to talk about it is giving them courage to start the questioning process.
And 100%, I am not smarter than those men, or they're all generally as Christians, so they're men. I'm sorry but okay, so I'm not smarter than them. I don't know more, but I'm more tenacious. Like, that's really the advantage that I bring to the table. And that's really all you need to do, is be willing to stick it out more than the other person. Beats intelligence and well-spokenness and well-funded ministry.
Well, we do have a call-in queue, and we're going to get to that
Awesome.
in just a second, but there are a couple of items of business that I wanted to take care of really quick. The first one being, Paul, for doing this show, I wanted to extend a very personal thank you. And we talked about how you like to commemorate avatars on your channel, and this point of pride for a lot of people. Like, Dan was excited beyond excited when he was commemorated in avatar form, and I know a lot of people who were. Beatty Booty was very excited the very first time when she saw that. So I have a little something for you. And I have made a likeness of you in puck form. So if crew, do we have that? Do we have that image? There we are. Paul,
oh my goodness!
You are now an official puck.
I love it.
There you are, and you have your
and you picked the right colors.
Absolutely, a lot of thought went into this. So there, I'll send you the files later. You can use it
I
wherever
love
you
it.
want.
Yay!
Shannon has one too. She's wearing a senator's beanie. But there you go. And also, we want to talk about ways to support the show. If you are a patron of the show, then we will every week call out a special patron of the week. This week is no exception. So let's get the name ready, and we will call out this week's patron of the week is Let's Go Boy. I'm not trying to pronounce all the I's, so get on me later if I mess that up. Let's Go Boy.
Boy.
Thank you very much, boy. There we go. Thank you very much. And you know what? We're running out of those. So if you would like to see your name up there, it's going to happen more likely than not. So get on Patreon if you have the means to do so, and help support the show. Everything that you send on there helps to make the show as great as it is. The reason I have lighting and good camera is because of the money that goes straight to the ACA. We'll put it right back to good production. So thank you very much for everybody to do that. Are you ready to get into the calls?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Let us start, please, with Molly from Indiana. Molly, how are you doing today?
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call.
Hi, Molly.
I was wondering. Oh, sorry, I know there's a delay.
There's about like 3-second delay. We'll figure out how to work with it. What you got?
So I want to talk about, or at least bring up, my experience growing up as Catholic, and having dreams as a big part of that belief system, and then kind of what I found out later on, like the truth about all of that. So I'd like to share that.
Sure. Go ahead. What's some how do you, because right now the thing I'm most curious about is how you get from dreams to truth. So help me bridge that gap.
Yeah. So growing up, and I don't know how much, I don't know if this applies to everything in Catholicism, but where I grew up, there's a lot of emphasis on, the dream interpretation of the Bible and saints having messages from dreams, and being a female in the Bible Belt, or Catholic, I guess, in the Bible Belt, Mary was so, important to us, and her dream about, hearing about becoming God's mom or something, was just so important that I got so, I guess, obsessed about dreams. So I would think, I'm going to be chosen by God for something. I need to pay attention to all my dreams. These are so important. Everybody must be a prophet because everybody dreams and has these crazy dreams. So they must mean something. And it just became something that I was so obsessed over, and still am today. But what I found out later down the line, I became an atheist, and I got some therapy, and I found out I have OCD. And through that, I've been working on it for 4 years now with a therapist and medication, and I found out the truth about the importance of dreams is that they're not important. They're not God going to send us a message or tell us we're going to do something important. I'm just obsessed over it because that's what my OCD kind of came out as. And on top of it being a religious thing, I found out some other OCD-related religiosity things regarding that. But I'm focusing on the dream part right now. So yeah, that's kind of my little story I wanted to share, and kind of bring up how some of these thoughts that people have that aren't really grounded in science or reason, maybe just a lot of undiagnosed mental health problems. So,
well, and of course, you don't have to have, and of course, you don't have to be on a spectrum of anything to have dreams.
Right.
And all humans, we like to
right.
be, well, not we like to, we are pattern matching creatures. We also like to put ourselves in the center of the story, our own stories. So I think probably what you came to realize is that we make attribution errors, right? That we like to attribute special importance to something that wasn't. Does that reflect how you originally believed?
Yeah, but it's with OCD in particular, it felt like, oh, if I don't pay attention to my dreams, I'm going to miss a sign from God, and I'm not going to do what he wants me to do. And like, I'll go to hell, or, you know, something will happen that's bad to my family.
So were you literally,
or, you know,
were you literally in fear when you woke up that you had to like somehow write down or you remember every detail of what you just dreamt? Is that sort of where your life was at?
Yeah. So like, even as a child, you know, I'd wake up and I'd spend some time. My dad would even yell at me because I had to go to school, like get ready for school. But I would lay in bed and just try to go through every single thing I can remember from my dream and see if anything was important.
Now, Molly,
in regards to that.
I'm nodding along here because I'm hearing a lot of when I was growing up, because I was always taught. I'm formerly Catholic also, and I was taught in their version of Sunday school that God doesn't speak to you audibly, but He leaves little hints at you, right? And he'll speak to you in very little ways, and you must be attuned to those. And the people who are most attuned to those are the ones that are closest to God, right? So you start looking for things, and you start finding things that, no offense, might not even actually be there, but you're trying to find a way to get it in, and you're trying to find a way to shoehorn it into the beliefs that you already believe. So yeah, that was me also, like thinking back on my dreams and trying to remember as much as possible to try to see, was there something there? And then talking to Father during confessional and trying to figure out, right, what's going on here. So that was my experience with Catholicism growing up. Were you really deep into it? Did you go to confession often, or were you more participatory?
Oh yeah, no. Honestly, it sounds very similar. You know, it's something where I heard you gotta really pay attention, and you know, because and I grew up kind of half and half. My mom was Protestant, and my dad's side is Catholic. But I'd hear it two different ways when we'd go to one church service and we go to the other one, and it got me very confused growing up. So I think that also kind of contributed to my stress with religiosity, with OCD and too. But yeah, it was definitely emphasized.
Yeah, I can't speak to actual mental health diagnoses and their effects on this, but I can absolutely agree that dreams they can be convincing, you know, especially when you're in a social network that will help you interpret those dreams in the way that best suits their agenda, if you know what I'm saying. Like, you know, if you say, "Oh, I had a dream about," then that must mean you have people who are reinforcing the idea that it was a divine source. That can't be easy either. So did you eventually find a network of people that didn't, like, you know, you're I see here you're from Indiana. That's not very far from me. You're right. You know, we're right dad smack in Bible Belt, and finding atheist communities isn't the easiest thing, especially if you're in small town Indiana. So how did you eventually come out of that? Did you find friends in the network, or what happened?
Well, unfortunately, no. I'm still kind of on my own. My husband is agnostic, so I've got him being supportive. I hate to say this, but I'm actually quite closeted to most people, just due to some factors that I'm working on. But I just recently told my sister that I was atheist, and I've been atheist for 5 or so years now, and it went very well, and she was very supportive. And then she told me she is actually starting to doubt her faith too. So I've got a tiny little bubble here to help me, but I listen to you guys a lot, and that helps.
Well, we're glad we can be here for you, Molly.
Yeah, thank you. I won't take up any more of your time, but I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share my experience.
Yeah, thank you for all.
All right, thank you very much, Molly. Have a good night. See, I told you we are reaching people, like even if we don't know. There's thank you very much, Molly, for being brave enough to call. But there's thousands of them, Paul. There are thousands of them that are listening to us, and it how often do we say it's not going to happen in one conversation?
No.
And it's not going to happen in a dozen conversations, but when you start opening the door, Molly, when you start being that person who goes to your sister and says, I am, this is what I believe now, it makes it easier for other people, because you've made it easy. You took the first steps. You're the trailblazer, and being the first person in your community that does that, that's tough. So a lot of props for being able to do that. What was it like for you, Paul? You talk a lot about your Mennonite upbringing.
Well, certainly we weren't stressed about dreams, because when you're coming from a farm community, they figure out if you can remember your dreams, you didn't work hard enough the next day, and we'll have to work harder. You should be just sleeping, not having a mental chit chat. But and then when it comes to being the pioneer, I know it's tough. I can't go into details to protect people, but there are communities that I've been involved in where I was the first one in those little communities to come out, and I know that has made it easier for to take the arrows, and the people who follow behind. They're often waiting, like Molly's sister there, waiting for someone braver than them to take that first step. And so when I definitely encourage, when you can, to be public about it when it's safe, and when you feel comfortable. Having people normalize non-belief in whatever form that takes is really important to a lot of communities. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense to some people in larger cities or where they have a large supportive community, but there's still a lot of communities in North America and around the world where no one is openly a non-believer. That doesn't mean there aren't non-believers, but they're in the shadows, and having that come out can only help.
Yeah, see, that's the blind spot for me, because I've always only lived in large cities, right? Well, if you want to call Anchorage, Alaska a large city, but going from there, Portland, Cincinnati, I mean, I've always been able to be, just by sheer numbers, I've always been able to find people who I share enough belief with. I've never been stuck in the middle of a community with only, like, I don't know, 2,000 families or something, and now this is all you've got. And if you don't, and they can make your life very miserable if you in such a small community, if you don't.
Right, the out group is a little more harsh in the small community, for sure.
Well, this is but one of the shows from the ACA, my personal favorite, because they're the ones that let me on the most. But if you're not familiar with the other programs that the ACA does, here's a little clip to show you what you're missing out on.
As if the idea of like talking meat just slapping against each other is not like inherently weird and gross and silly and fun and beautiful and sexy.
Hey, you may get in a plane crash in the Himalayas, and you might have to eat your friend, but like you wouldn't want to eat your friend every day. Like that doesn't mean that's reasonable for you to go around eating your friends all the time.
So we originally had a 4-up today, but unfortunately I murdered our 4th host in cold blood right before the show. So it's only the 3 of us today.
Go ahead.
Yes, so I will say that if this is supposed to be God's love, then y'all can keep it.
I would believe that he existed, and I would be, instead of doing the atheist experience, I would be doing the God is a piece of experience. It's explaining how I believe that this God exists and how neither me nor anyone else should worship him, despite the consequences.
It's become a thing now, Paul, where us hosts, we're like conscious of it. We're like, oh, is that the clip that's going to make it? Is this the clip that, what can I do to make it so that this is the clip that makes it? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I live with someone who managed to get a clip on the last couple promos. Super secret word that was fun to say.
That one is going to live in infamy. That's going to be. Like, I'm surprised if that's not the most watched clip. I don't know if Crew does this, but do you have that just like as its own video? Because if you did, people are going to be just watching that 20-second. It's not even 20 seconds. Yeah, maybe it's about. But there's just that loop over and over and over again of Jenna and Shannon. If you don't know what we're talking about, watch more ACA shows.
That's right.
All right. Let's hit the lines here one more time. I want to talk to Erin from, you'll recognize the Postal Court of BC.
Ooh.
Erin, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing okay. How are you guys?
We're all right.
See, as a courtesy to American
This is
hosts, which
a-
most of us are, they just say Canada down there. But when Erin is hosting this show, and
This
if I'm getting a call and I know, like, I'm not afraid to put down ON or SK. You know, I like watching the American host struggle with it, but we know what that means. I'm not Canadian, but I'm just Canadian by association. But great to have you here, Erin. What did you want to talk to Paul about?
Hi. So I have recently been, I guess, discovered as an activist by my family. So my question, and it's not going well. Let's just say that it's not going that well. So as much as they knew kind of like where I was with my maybe faith positions, I don't think they knew quite how out of it I am. And they definitely didn't know that I was doing online activism. And so I guess my question is, was that a mistake? Should I have talked to them about it earlier? And also, what advice would you two give about that? And maybe even, did you go through this experience of like having your family discover that you not only are not a Christian anymore, but you actually actively speak out against the harms of Christianity?
Paul, you want to take this one first?
Sure. So yes, so many unpleasant memories flooding back. Thank you for that.
Sorry.
So no, that's our. It's sorry.
Canadian.
Yeah, we apologize when you. Yeah. So, yeah, was it a mistake? So, well, I mean, let me back up. So, yes, we first had the discussion of that I'm an atheist, and then I later became an online activist. So that was less of a surprise to them. I mean, a bunch of them learned it from, of course, other people forwarding, because these, as you know, the community you leave likes nothing better than to talk about the people who have left. So that, if once one finds out, they all find out. Was it a mistake? So I mean, we can't go back and correct anything. My biggest mistake was that I didn't control how I was outed. I like to say that someone went ahead and did that on my behalf, and I wasn't ready to have all those discussions with my family. And so it sounds like it's something similar is happening to you, where someone outed you before you were ready. And so what I will say, unfortunately, and this isn't great news, is that, that's probably going to sting for a while, because you didn't get, not because they shouldn't know and not because whatever, but you didn't get to control the initial narrative. So if you want to keep being an activist, that's all going to be wrapped up with the normal advice that I like to give on this stuff, is that, if you and the people you're dealing with both agree that the relationship is more important than the disagreement, then you can find a path. I'm assuming, Erin, that you will always be on that side where you would prefer to maintain the relationship rather than be right. And it's okay. Yeah. It's okay if that's not the case. Like, sometimes there are toxic people in our lives, and they're just like, they're so wrong. We got to cut that out. But when you want those relationships to continue, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this specific situation is with people that I care very deeply about. I'm generally very close with, and I don't want to hurt them, and I want to retain a good relationship. So it is tricky. I've had other people in my life who they don't agree with me, with something about me or what I do with my life, and I've been willing to like kind of make boundaries and cut ties. But right now, I'm facing the family that I really want in my life. But they're obviously very like shook up about what I do, right. And so I'm trying to think about how to navigate that in a healthy way.
So 2 quick things. One is to assure them that, based on what my experience anyway, assuring the people that you're not holding them personally, that you are not making this content because of them personally, and that you do not necessarily blame them specifically as individuals, right? You think that the whole thing is a system of lies, but you are not angry with them as individuals. So there's that first, and then the second thing, and hopefully they accept that you're not doing this to hurt them. The second thing would be inviting them to maybe set some boundaries for how you include them. So my family has asked certain things of me. So sometimes if I don't answer questions, it's to honor the requests of people in my life who are important to me, who would rather not. Yeah. They didn't sign up to be public figures, right?
That's a great idea.
So I invited them to say, like, what are you comfortable with me talking about, and what are you not? And I have done my very best to honor the things that causes them the greatest angst. It doesn't cause the whole problem, but it's a good faith gesture that you can do. So, and I can't get into the specifics because I would be breaking the agreements I made, but hopefully that's enough of a broad.
Totally.
Yeah. The only thing that I would really have to add to that is that as public figures, like you and me, we're public, right? We don't always control who hears our message. And I thought that I was doing these shows for the past year in some sort of like privacy or at least in a little bubble where none of my family finds out. Come to find out that not long after I started doing shows with nonprofits last year, they did know. And my mom surprised me, and she said, you know what, we don't agree with what you say, but we appreciate that you feel strongly enough that you would feel that you're out there, you're well spoken, you're well put together, and we appreciate that you feel that you're doing what you do, even though we disagree with it. So maybe there's like a surprise factor out there, but I suppose what's important to me is controlling the message. And if you're not out there, you know, if how do I want to say this? If you're not controlling what gets out there, then someone else is. And you have the best chance of controlling with your family what their message is. You're already out here, right? We can look up several hours of your content. Same with me. And this could get to the wrong hands at any time. And it's one of the risks that we run as content creators. We have no idea who's watching, right? So like for me, I should have had the conversation sooner than later. And by the time I did, it was too late. And my parents were proud of me. Who knew?
That's so interesting. But both of those things are such good advice. I hadn't thought about. Well, actually, I did. Even amongst my activism, I've always tried to be very careful with my wording. But like Paul was saying, like I can't control the narrative around it. And what I thought was using like kind of like safe words to describe the harmful aspects of growing up in religion, even though I may have used words like my upbringing or the environment at church. Those things are still easily attributed to parenting, and so I can see how valuable it would be to have a very honest conversation with them and set boundaries about like what can I say that's not going to hurt you, because I'm not meaning to hurt you. I'm meaning to send a bigger message out there, and I love you guys, and I think you're great. But these parts of my childhood and my upbringing were very harmful, and some of it involves like the way that things happened because we were like a charismatic evangelical family, but a lot of it happened even kind of without them knowing. So it is really interesting to think about that. I kind of had a thought that like once I knew they would find out eventually. And I kind of had this thought that like when they found out, it might somehow kind of minimize that effect of thinking that because I don't believe anymore that I'm going to change as a person, and because they've seen me still throughout the last couple of years, and like they didn't maybe know I was an atheist, but that our relationship has been great the last few years, and so that might help a little bit with like them thinking that I'm going to somehow derail my life now that I'm not a Christian. But I think I may have misstepped by not talking to them about it.
And of course, you remember back to when you were a Christian, right? Anyone who's not for me is against me, right? The Jesus line.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you are
I know their theology, so I can already see where they're going to go with this, and I'm
right
for the fact that they think those things, and I'm trying to decide like how do I have this like good conversation where we're building trust rather than throwing all these things I've learned over the last few years, and like I'm not sure if I'm wanting to cause them doubt or if I'm just trying to like comfort them at this point. Like it's really, really tough to navigate.
Well, a couple things is one, they know where you stand now, so there's probably not much point in rolling your eyes when you're like when they're praying, right? Or like they know, and they're already dreading how you're gonna react when they say certain things, when they say blessings or that they're praying for you. They're already tensing up based on my experience of the people who used to be in my life, right? So
yeah,
you know, you just have to be aware that in their mind, you are now no longer, you've not only rejected the thing that's most important to them, you are actively undermining the thing that is most important to them. And so that might also mean you can't say yes to every request they have. Say yes to as many as you're comfortable with. But also, you may have to come up with some things where you just both agree that we're never going to bring something X up or Y up, right? You have that, and you talked about boundaries, so I'm sure that's exactly what you meant by that. But it will unfortunately mean that there's probably going to be some topics that you can't talk about at Thanksgiving in October when it's supposed to be.
Oh, shots fired! I knew that was going to happen. The more Canada jokes we can get in here, the better.
Thanksgiving.
You guys are going to gang up on me on this one now, aren't you? Okay, that's fine. I can live with it.
Like several Thanksgivings. Thanksgiving is anytime.
I actually celebrate. My kids are American, so we actually celebrate both Canadian and American, which is the best. 2 turkeys.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Erin, thank you very much for giving us the call. Hopefully we gave you some insight. And for those of you who don't know, Erin's going to be actually, she's a regular recurrent host here on Truth Wanted. So it's only a matter of time before we get to see you back on the camera here, right?
That's right. I'll be back very, very soon.
We will see you soon.
Awesome.
Erin, thank you so much for calling tonight.
Okay.
All right, let us talk to, here's Phil from Texas. UFOs, Bigfoot, and other YouTube channels, how atheists can help fight against those channels. How are you doing tonight, Phil?
Hi, Puck. I'm so happy to see you on screen. You're getting lots of screen time. You look wonderful. And Paul, the sweetest, kindest, nicest atheist on YouTube.
I see. Well, I'm glad I have you fooled.
Okay, great. I'll make this quick. I spend way too much time looking at conspiracy channels and crazy channels and so on, and there's not enough skeptic presence there. Because as my very wise old mom says, you'll never change those people's minds. But my point is, if a few people go on and make cogent arguments, we can maybe divert the young people who are just looking at those channels for the first time. What do you think?
Well, start us off.
Sure. Well, first of all, I would heartily disagree that there's no point in talking to people. As I mentioned at the top of the show, like 4 or 5 years ago, I thought the Earth was 6,000 years old, and now I'm here. So if everyone decided that I wasn't worth talking to, or that people wasn't making content that was geared to someone like me, then I would still be sitting around thinking the dinosaurs were on the ark. So I have to heartily say that I'm an example of why that's not a correct statement at all. The second part, though, is it is very tricky to talk to. We all know about confirmation bias. We all know that we're prone to listen to people in our own camp. And when it comes to conspiracy theories, there is very little middle ground nuanced discussion, right? There's not a lot of, let's have a chat about whether vaccines are a good thing. There's very few people that have a strong opinion that's in the middle, or have an opinion. So I think if you kind of have to do what Paul the Apostle did, and that is to become a bit of a chameleon. To the Jews, he was a Jew. To the Greeks, he was a Greek. You kind of have to have some credibility in the camp you want to talk to them. I feel like, or at least that gives you a huge advantage. If so, for example, what I would, I think the most effective possible thing in a, let's say, a QAnon or whatever, right? You want to find someone who did believe it honestly and then came out of it. Because just having someone who never believed it shout at them is a tough sell. It's a tough sell. Not that it can't be done. I think what you have. Go ahead.
I may have misstated my point. Okay, yesterday on Coast to Coast AM, there was a guy who claimed as a grade schooler he was teleported and transported back and forth in time. And he went back to 1 million years BC and saw a dinosaur. Well, there were no dinosaurs in 1 million BC. I'm saying that middle-of-the-road people need to make cogent, non-argumentative arguments to debunk some of this junk.
I don't disagree, and that actually very largely was earlier in the interview when I talked about with young Earth creationism was actually easier than someone's theology, because you could actually just do some, like with something like that 1 million years ago, you can do some nice fact checking and not get in anyone's face, but you can. That's a nice easy one where it's like, well, okay, let's talk about the facts that were presented in a non-judgmental way, but lay out why that claim can't possibly be true. And especially if you don't attribute it to malice or attribute it to ignorance, you just kind of point out, oh, well, they are obviously mistaken about one detail or another because they don't line up. I would love to see more sense. In fact, you're making me laugh because literally this afternoon I was like, I need to start making videos about Coast to Coast AM. I used to love that show.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, yes. It's the craziest of the crazy.
Yeah.
There was one guy that said a female Bigfoot drug him up from the creek and had intercourse with him. And of course, my question is, how was it?
Please, this isn't Thursday.
Go ahead.
No. I think, like, for me, and this is something that I struggle with, like, what's the best way to fight back? There's this BS scale where it takes very little time to spit out BS compared to how much time it takes to fight BS, right? And by the time we're done, like, even if we can factually take apart one claim, they've already gone off and given 10 more. Right. And so it feels like this endless fight against this Hydra where you cut off one head and 3 heads grow in its place. Right. And I think that it's impossible for any one content creator to do it. But one of the reasons I do what I do is because I want to model the kind of conversations that I want to see other people having elsewhere. And when you have tools at your disposal, not to take on these big channels and big claims, but to take on Bob from work over at the water cooler who says something way out there, and then you can just look at him and say, you know what, I can understand why you'd believe that. But you know let's talk about this some more, and then maybe you can start to pick apart at their reason for the belief, and then from there you can take on that one person. The conversations that we have on here, we're going to reach maybe a couple thousand people, okay? But the people who are listening are going to have those conversations a lot more than we are. And my hope is to give people that ammunition and that confidence to be able to have these conversations at the water cooler. And we'll slowly start to turn the Bobs of this world. It's not going to happen on shows like this. It's going to happen at the water cooler.
Listen, I have one more very important thing to tell you. I've looked into this on Google, and you know when you get those ads that come up at the front of these shows?
Indeed.
If you watch them for 30 seconds or click the learn more, subscribe now, whatever button, that puts money in the pocket of the YouTube provider, and it costs money to those doing those ads. So if you see a church-related ad, watch it for 30 seconds, and you will put money in the pocket of your YouTuber.
Chip away at the one YouTube engagement at a time. No, I absolutely agree with you. It's small, but it's something that anybody can do. It's totally free. Well, yeah, watch it and then make them pay for our show. It's good. It's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But that's how I would fight. Then that's my message, and hopefully we gave you some things that you can do at home and at the water cooler.
Well, I just say engage with the crazies even a little bit, because somebody innocent may be watching.
Yeah, that's why we're here. We're here not just for the people who are calling. Like, how many times have you heard this, Paul? We're not here just for the callers. We're here for whoever might be listening to the callers. Who they might be listening and saying, wow, that's something that I used to believe, and now I'm hearing someone systematically take it apart and start making more sense than anybody else I've ever heard.
I'm just here to hang out with Puck. I don't know why anyone else is here.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the hockey season to start, quite frankly. I mean, if this show had happened a month from now, we'd all just be itching. It's like, okay, guys, can we wrap this up? The Seattle Kraken game is about to start. There would be no Discord after party. It'd be straight to the rink. By the way, that reminds me, I need to change my availability with the ACA.
When the masking and all that is over, I want to come down to the ACA and bring you guys 2 gallons of the best chili you've ever had.
Well, you're not going to find us there because I'm in Cincinnati and Paul's in.
But I am going to visit. I'm with you. I am going to visit the ACA again. That is a place I'm going to go. So the Free Thought Library, and I have a hard time betting that anyone there, you'd convince them that you have the best chili. But I would love to see you try, because Texans are serious, as you know, about their chili.
And us here in Ohio, we have no idea what we're talking about when it comes to chili. Right. I'll just be flat out. So
I will put my chili up against crack cocaine.
Okay.
Oh, I would have no basis for comparison, but I will.
Speaking for everyone at the Free Thought Library, bring it on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep. All right.
Phil, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. You're doing a great. I love the ACA. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Have a great night.
So the thing I would add to that is obviously Truth Wanted is the show on the ACA that is designed to deal with more of that kind of just methodology, right? We're not concerned that people are changing their lives because they believe that someone time traveled and saw a dinosaur. Like, we're not, at least I'm not concerned that anyone's rights are going to be taken away in the legislature because someone believes that. But I think your answer was so great. It was better than mine that, we got to, you want to use this as an example, a way to teach source methods or teach source epistemology in some way. It's kind of like, and this was actually something I was able to do with my kids when I stopped being a theist. They weren't willing to have conversations with me regarding faith specifically, but when a commercial would come on, I could still talk to them. Well, do you think that that's true, what they said in the commercial? And how would we check, do you think? And I think, this time travel dinosaur guy is a great way to do that. It's like, well, is there anything there that we can check for ourselves?
Yeah. How did you know it was 1 million years ago? Did you go to the newsstand and check out a newspaper and look for the date?
Right. And it said 1 million BC because they knew they were counting down.
Right. And it's, of course, it's in English, so you could read the newspaper that was there. And so this is why I love the variety of shows that the ACA puts out. And I love working with the shows that I work with. Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen, they're fun shows, but I also like, specifically like nonprofits, which we'll talk about. This is, where religion and government are colliding, and what we, be informed first and then find out what you can do about it second. And then a show about general epistemology like this one, where we'll pick apart not just religious beliefs, but where else are these beliefs spreading. It's dangerous now. Like about 10 years ago, conspiracy theories were just kind of like fun to read about on Reddit, and now we're getting to the point where it's actually potentially harming people because they're not they think that COVID is sorry, I shouldn't say, wow, okay, I just demonetized the whole show by saying one word.
No, it's no viruses or
yeah.
But I mean, back to the initial thing that Molly, I think it was Molly, who the call about the dream. How many times do I hear now? Like, I had a dream about this and that solidified it for me. And like when I was a Christian, I'd have nodded along to that, but now that's just so bad. That's just
it's like, how can I believe this? But you realize, because you, like you said, you've been there. You've been in a place where you believed it, so you know why it's convincing. Right.
But I would say laws in our countries, yours and mine, are being affected by legislators who think that they had a dream about something. I think that happens.
Oh, that's the legislation by dream. That's okay.
So,
Watch the nonprofits every
yep.
Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Time, sandwiched neatly between Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience. I like to joke it's the show that's between Seinfeld and Friends that you watch
yeah.
just so you don't have to change the channel, right? It's Caroline in the City, but it's still a great show.
Or was it Wings? I forget.
Wow, that brought me back. Okay, and you know what? We
Yep.
don't actually get. We talked about this during the pre-show that we don't often get Christian apologists calling us on the show, and I'm glad. I think this happened because you're here,
Uh-oh.
and I've never done this before. I finally get to talk to Otangelo. Otangelo, how are you doing?
Yes, hello guys. Fine, and you?
I'm tickled. Because I never get the big names calling me, right? Like even Dean Meadows, who calls every ACA show in the book. Somehow, whenever I'm on, he finds something better to do on Friday nights. But now I get to talk to you. I get to meet you. So hi, Otangelo. My name is Puck, and this is Paul. How are you doing tonight?
Yes. So I've seen that Paul made a few years ago an episode on his channels, just a spoonful full of DNA helps creationism go down. Creationism, they claim. And I would like to address that. So my question to you, Paul, would be, do you believe that creating a recipe to make a cake is always a mental process?
Wait, Can you repeat the question?
Can you say that again? I'm not quite sure I followed the question.
Yes. Creating a recipe to make a cake is always a mental process.
Like you're talking about like literally the paper that you get if you buy a cake at a bakery?
I believe he means recipe and not recipe.
Oh, a recipe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, English.
No, that's
no,
fine.
that's right.
You know what? I can't speak Portuguese, so you're one step on top of where I am. So no props for having this conversation in what I assume is not your first language. That's awesome.
Well,
okay.
The creating a recipe is implying something. So I have eaten things that were an unintentional combination of ingredients that happened for reasons that no one was divining. So does that count as a recipe? Because I think what you're saying is if someone deliberately sets out to make a cake, for example, then yes, that is a activity that involves intelligence, but ingredients can be combined to eat a thing that didn't require intelligence.
Yes, of course. You can also make like a random combination of ingredients, but then probably the taste will also not be what you expect should be tasteful, right? But I mean, in the same line of reasoning, maybe a better analogy would be that creating a blueprint to make a machine for a specific purpose always requires a mental process. Would you agree with that?
If you're specifically talking about a blueprint, again, that's you're bringing in, you're saying, are designed things designed? And I think that's easy to agree to. Are designed things designed? Yes.
No, when we are talking about like a machine that has a specific purpose and you make a blueprint to have that machine, then we can infer logically that the cause of that blueprint, who instantiates that blueprint, must be someone with intelligence, which has an intent, which has foresight, and which has a reason to make that blueprint in order to have that machine with a specific purpose. I think we can agree on that, right?
Well, if you find the actual blueprint, then you would be able to, that would be one way to demonstrate that something was designed for a specific purpose. But the other thing is that, of course, we can use things we can get functionality out of things that are not for the thing it was designed for. It might not even be a thing that was designed. So Pardon me for hedging. I'm a little wary about where you're heading with this.
Yeah, me too. But let's see what you got.
But I'm agreeing with you that designed things are designed. So if you're trying to identify is this stick designed to open a bottle, or did it just happen to be able to open a bottle? Presenting a blueprint would be one way to differentiate between a designed thing and a non-designed thing.
Yeah, and more to my interest though. Like, help me out with this, Otangelo, because I've heard you talk about this before, and I'm sorry that you probably haven't seen a lot of me, so you don't know where I'm coming from and thinking this. But in my idea, one of the hallmarks of design is like we know what we want the final product to be, right? So how do we come up to the idea that any of the end results, anything that you see now, is the intention? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you look at the way cells work, and how do you know that was the point of the cell? How do you know that the cell as you're looking at right now was the intent? How do you know that?
Okay, if I show you a blueprint with the specified information to make a turbine, an energy turbine, for example, which is made of several interlocked parts. And that turbine has a specific function, namely to generate energy. And you have that blueprint in front of you with all the sizes and the specification of the materials, how the individual parts have to be put together. And then you have in that blueprint also the turbine fully mounted and the instructions how to mount it.
Okay, no, Otangelo, forgive me for interrupting, because I don't think you're addressing the question that I had. I want to know how you can look at something that we see in the world today and say that was the point. The intention was to create Puck exactly in the form that he is. How do we? You say if you see a blueprint, sure. Where's the Puck? Where is anything that says that the point was to make Puck? How do you know that the whole point was to make me and you?
With the example of the turbine, it has a specific goal or purpose, namely to generate energy, and it requires a number of parts which have to work in a joint venture together in order to have that functionality.
Yeah. No, I get that part. I get that part. You're still missing my question. How do you know that the point was to make me?
Well, because you see a specific function, a purpose of the device, which is made in a complex way based on several.
Wait. How do we know what my purpose is?
Oh, I am giving you as an example.
I get that, and I'm trying to say, okay, let's like I said, I've heard this, and I hate to do this and fast forward, but we're limited on time, and I hate doing this that this happens to you all the time, Otangelo. I do, because I wish that we could just sit down and do they have ice hockey in Brazil? I've always wondered about that. But anyway, beside when we look at design, when you see a blueprint, you know what you wanted the final product to be, right? The blueprint points to the final. How do we know that the point was to make me? How do you know that the point was to make the world that it is now?
Well, I am trying to elucidate that by making an analogy, and I would come to that, but maybe a human being has many functional parts. It has eyes, it has ears, it can walk, it can speak, it can sense things, and so forth. So to simplify and to illustrate what I am talking about, I prefer to give you an example with an energy turbine. So when you go to see an energy plant and you see there an energy turbine, then you know it has a function. It is made in order to generate energy. That is something which was designed, correct?
And we know that because we have an example. We can see all the process of it. We see the plants that came before that really sucked, okay, that weren't very efficient. We can see the efficiency grow, and we can see the people who were working on it who says, okay, this is the fuel that we have. How do we convert it to the usable energy that we want? We know what the final result is intended to be. How do we know that I am the final result that was intended?
Well, as an analogy to the energy turbine which I gave you, we can look in life, in biology, and what makes actually ATP, which is the energy currency in life, in biology, in the cell, is the ATP synthase, which is, in a literal sense, an energy turbine. It generates energy. It makes ATP, which is the energy currency in the cell.
Okay.
And in an analogous way as the human-made turbine, it is, in a literal sense as well, a turbine which is made of at least 5 interlocked parts, and they are all made through the instructions of information stored in DNA. So we have a precise analogy here.
Okay. We actually don't, and I'm going to say why. Because even though it happens to work with ATP currency, we do not know that the point, that the purpose was to design something that uses ATP as energy. We have no indication of that. That's why I'm asking you, how do you know that the intention was to design something that does this? How do you know that the intentional end result is me, Paul, a tree? How do you know that the intention of whatever you say creates was to make this? This was the whole point. Or otherwise, it could have just been, this is what happened to be. We happen to be able to process and metabolize certain foods and not others, right? How do you know the difference between the intention and it just happens to?
Yeah. As you probably know, proteins, they are made of amino acids. These are the building blocks which make proteins, which are molecular machines. Now, let's suppose that you are on a prebiotic Earth and there is no life. Okay, and the question is how life came to be. Now, energy is essential to have life, and there is no life form known which does not use ATP synthase turbines. So that is a question of the origin of life, how ATP synthase emerged prebiotically. Now, as I said to you previously, ATP synthase is made of amino acids. These are the basic building blocks, and life uses 20 specific amino acids which are used in all proteins used in life. But prebiotically, there were over 500 different amino acids laying around. So they would have had to be selected, and that is already an unsolved abiogenesis problem. There was no natural selection. Natural selection is something which is used in evolution, which starts with DNA replication.
You're right. Yeah. No. So exactly. So no, there obviously is no natural selection until things are replicating.
Right. Okay.
But it's not. We don't. You know, there's a lot of papers on this. This is something we don't know precisely, but there are certainly ideas, and there are certainly experiments that lead us to think that RNA is going to occur naturally, given the right conditions, and replicating RNA will begin, and like all that stuff. Yeah, do we know exactly how it happened? Maybe we'll never know because it's a historical question, so we can't know the steps. But once we can start, there is a natural path that makes sense to getting this stuff, to getting there. And again, you talk about dysfunction. I mean, part of evolution is taking things that exist and starting to use them for different functions. So we don't know that ATP synthase originally came together to provide energy. There might have been precursors to it. In fact, there would have been precursors to it because it wouldn't have been naturally selected for. I mean, if assuming that chemical evolution is a real thing, which I know you probably don't.
You are just claiming gobbledygook here. You are just
fine. I'm claiming gobbledygook.
Yeah. Okay. See, Otangelo, here's the thing. I really I would love it to have the time to sit down and genuinely get to know you. You seem like a really interesting and fascinating person. You believe strongly in what you believe. But the reason I let you go as long as you did was because I was waiting for it to come around to actually answer my question, and you never did. And as much as I want to think that you want to have something honest to talk about, that's kind of a minus point. Now, I'm not going to go so far into the minus that I'm going to assume that you have bad intent every time we talk. But this is like a point against. And so people in chat are wondering why I let this go on so long. It's because I was hoping that there would be a meaningful response to this. Now, maybe it's a number of things, and we don't have time to solve this today. I hope we do have a chance to talk to each other again someday, and maybe it doesn't have to be quite this confrontational. Like I said, you seem to be a really nice person. I don't think we need to get to the point where we're assuming intent just yet. But I think we're at an impasse today. Think about the question that I gave for you and see if you can come up with an answer. I'm on here pretty often, and you can find me, and we'll talk about ways to contact me. Otangelo, this was an interesting first meeting. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to talk, and if it wasn't 5 minutes till the show is over, I'm sure we could have had a lot more meaningful conversation. So thank you very much, and I hope to speak to you again in the future.
I may have been saying things that are
Bye-bye.
I was saying things that were obviously, as I said, not proven. Abiogenesis, we don't know exactly everything about that, but we do know that the appearance of design is not necessarily design,
right? And
complexity is not a hallmark of design. Simplicity is more often a hallmark of design than complexity. So when he wants to lift up, well, there was, X number of amino acids to choose from. Fine. I mean, it's complex, but that doesn't mean anything. So you and I were both frustrated for different reasons.
And by the way, check out Paulogia's wonderful channel to see what the original response was for. And I would also be remiss if I didn't point out Vice Rhino's channel, who Vice Rhino does a number of channels responding to young Earth creation claims, and he likes to talk about abiogenesis on occasion. And I posted about abiogenesis on my Twitter today too. So hey, maybe that's where they got the idea to call. So Paul, what'd you think? What'd you think of our humble little Friday night show here?
Well, I've been on the show before, and it's still good. Who needs Dan, right?
Yeah, we need Dan. I need the occasional Friday night off. Hockey season is coming up. That's
Yeah. Whenever I was feeling stressed, if it ever at all, then I could just look over and see your lovely shirt worn in my honor. So I appreciate that. I obviously love the show. Love what you guys do at the ACA, all the shows. So people should watch more.
Well, where can people watch more of you?
Well, generally, if you search Paulogia, which is on screen, so I don't know where to move my finger to show that it is there. But
there you get your own card. I don't even have one of these.
If you search, for that in pretty much any social media, you'll find just me. So that's where I am. If I'm not lucky enough to be involved with the ACA on an occasional basis.
And I also wanted to talk really quick before we have to go about the various ways that you can support the show. One of them is to go to our Patreon, patreon.com/truthwanted. Right there, there's benefits to being a member even at the lowest level. You can watch our podcast in commercial free form, along with a slew of other benefits. We'll call out our patron of the week every week, so that's going to be you one of these days. One of the simplest ways you can support the channel is to like and subscribe and leave a comment. You can also join our channel for as little as $99 a month. You get fun little emotes that you can use everywhere. Who hasn't wanted to put an upside down Dan face in the chats of all the other channels that we have here, right? I check our email quite a bit. I love hearing from the audience. So you can email us at truth@atheist-community.org. I want to give I'll do my best to make sure there's a meaningful response to every question that goes on there. Other places you can engage with us are the Facebook fan group. This is completely fan run, facebook.com/groups/truthfg. I'm on there a lot. So if you want to continue this conversation, that's a great place to do it. And you can also get your own Truth Wanted swag. Just go to tiny.cc/merchaca. One of the things I love wearing the Truth Wanted mask around here, because the area code for Cincinnati is 513. So people think it's a typo, and it's like, no, you're actually calling Austin. It's a great way to drum up some conversation on there. You too can have a Truth Wanted mask and get some more people going into the show. And we're going to be going here shortly. There is the fan run Discord. So you can get there by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord. I'm going to be there for the after party in just a little bit. And there's a lot of people who are willing to engage with you on just about any subject you can come up with. And finally, we talked about this in the beginning. We're going to talk about it again. We would be nothing if it wasn't for the crew that is working behind the scenes to make it so that all we have to do is sit here and look pretty. There we are.
Woo,
hello,
yay,
everybody.
crew.
Hi, Mom. Thank you guys all very much. Hey, look at the guy on the top left over there. He's in the promo that we just watched. So we like taking the people in the crew and throwing them right in with the nonprofits and making them do shows for us on here. So thank you very much, Paul, for being here. And
My
thank you
pleasure.
everybody for watching. And as always, until next week, keep wanting the truth.
Watch the nonprofits and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.